I'm very excited to introduce today's guest to this episode, three-time Super Bowl champion and current Pittsburgh Maulers head coach Ray Horton. The USFL couldn't have picked a more fitting coach to replace Kirby Wilson, a former teammate of his with the Steelers. As if his return to representing Pittsburgh wasn't enough, he will also run a team for the first time in the state of Ohio, a place he called home for a decade, and once helped lead their beloved Bengals to the Super Bowl as well. As if all those storylines weren't enough, Coach Horton will work with his son in 2023, and he gets to don the black and gold once again.
We targeted good people first that are outstanding athletes. And so, if you will, we modeled ourselves after the Pittsburgh Steelers and how they drafted.
Speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers and modeling yourselves after them, what do you think about donning the yellow and black once again in 2023?
Well, I'm glad they changed it. I mean, if you're obviously Pittsburgh, every pro franchise in Pittsburgh is black and gold. So what are we going to be? We're going to be black and gold. And for us, what an opportunity to be our first year. We're in Canton. I know we're not in Pittsburgh this year, but we'll be over there doing Boys and Girls Club visits. We're taking our players over there. We'll be at the police stations and fire stations and the high schools. We want to be in the community. And that's part of what Pittsburgh is. And when people think of Pittsburgh sports, they think of black and gold.
Check out our official sponsor, the Upside app. Available free to Android or Apple users. Download Upside using our code SAM363682 to get an extra cashback bonus on your first purchase. Upside is an app that will pay you cash back for purchases you are likely already making. Whether it's filling up your tank, taking the family out to eat, or buying groceries, Upside is working to bring you more widespread offers each day. Not only will we both receive a one-time bonus for your initial sign-up and first purchase, after each gas purchase after that, Shady Sports Network will receive a small referral bonus as well. The same can be said for any user who refers another user. As if that wasn't enough, Upside will actually pay you a bonus for the people your referrals have referred to the app as well. With so many ways to earn cash back each and every day, what are you waiting for? Download Upside today. Use our code SAM363682. That's SAM363682 to get cash back and help support Shady Sports Network today. Now, back to the original programming. Please like, comment, and subscribe to help us continue growing in the future. All right, tonight I am joined by a three-time Super Bowl winning coach with the NFL who has finally gotten his opportunity to run his own professional football team at the USFL level, Mr. Ray Horton. Thank you for joining me tonight, Coach. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Sam, and I appreciate the opportunity.
The opportunity is all mine, I would say, but thank you so much for joining us. I really can't tell you how excited I was to have you on tonight.
Well, I'm excited too. This is my kind of first opportunity to do this, and it just coincides that today is the first day that our fans can get tickets. And I was in Phoenix today, and somebody said, "Well, where can I get tickets if I wanted to come back to the game in Ohio?" I said, "Just go to usfl.com and get your tickets, and off you go." So for me, it's excitement already, and I just happened to meet a stranger today, and they asked what I did and why I was out golfing, and I told them I'm getting ready to go back to work. What do you mean go back to work? And I told them I was in the USFL, and they said, "Can I come watch?" I was like, "You can if you want to." So, even though we don't start for another month, there is excitement already building up for this.
As there should be. I mean, last season was tremendously exciting, in my opinion, and you're the first spring league in over a decade to make it to a second season. So to me, that means a lot.
Yeah, it does. And it really, I think, to me, Sam, testifies to the quality of the play. I mean, the players, obviously. When you have players that turn up on NFL rosters in the playoffs on NFL teams, it shows you that, and I keep saying it's like the field of dreams. If you're good enough, they'll come find you.
100%. I mean, just not to get too far off track here, but that story about Cavante Turpin and what he was able to accomplish in the USFL and then going to the NFL and then becoming a Pro Bowler in season 1 is unbelievable. Talk about a storybook ending for his stay in the USFL, and what a commercial for the USFL as far as that goes too.
And I think it also helps coaching. It's kind of like the carrot and the stick. You're dangling it in front of them. And it really is. I mean, the kids want to get to the ultimate stage, and there's proof right there that you can if you're good enough. And I keep saying they'll find you no matter where you're at. You know, you talk about Kurt Warner in a grocery store, you know, Tony Romo undrafted, Tom Brady not drafted till the 6th round. If you're good enough, they'll find you.
100%. And that's exactly why we need leagues like the USFL and the XFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're great stepping stones for kids that somehow got overlooked. And it gives them, and I love this word, it gives them the opportunity to showcase that, hey, look at me, I'm getting better.
Absolutely. So I'm kind of curious. You came out of the University of Washington under Coach Don James, who is somewhat of a legend in that area, coached the team for 18 years. What did you learn from Coach James that you've used to this day as a coach?
Oh, wow, everything. If you can imagine a high school kid stepping into really a pro system, because Coach James ran it like a pro system, everything of how to be a football player, how to be a man. At that time, you know, 18 years old, and figure out what's going on in the world and life and sports. And I still go back to those days all the time of he laid such a foundation for me to not only be a better football player, but to be a better person. So I'm indebted to Coach James and really what he instilled in me.
That's amazing. Like I said, he's a legend. So, I mean, being able to start your career under him, I imagine, was a blessing in disguise without you quite knowing it at the time. You came out of college right about the time the original USFL was kicking off. Did you have any USFL interest when you came out of college?
Yeah, I was originally drafted by the LA Express of the United States Football League. And I was actually drafted there before I was drafted in the NFL. And the first pick was Dan Marino out of the University of Pittsburgh, and obviously Hall of Famer. So, yes, and it just, the way it worked out, I ended up going to the NFL, and now I'm in the USFL. So it's kind of full circle that really the first league that drafted me, and now here I am in the league.
Absolutely. So you ended up going on to be a 2nd-round pick by the Cincinnati Bengals under head coach Forrest Gregg. How did it feel to be ultimately selected by not only the USFL, but the NFL as well?
It was flattering. And then to be under Coach Gregg, who Vince Lombardi once said he was my best player. He didn't say he was my most valuable player. Maybe that was Bart Starr, but he said he was my best player. And Forrest was a man's man. And boy, he would lower the hammer on you. And I learned toughness, grit, dependability, meaning he wanted you to be where you're supposed to be. So for me to really go from Don James to an NFL Hall of Famer, somebody that played for the Green Bay Packers, whoa! I mean, that's quite an induction into college football and then into the NFL. So what an experience for me.
Absolutely. I can only imagine learning from 2 amazing coaches to begin your career. But in 1984, your second season in the NFL, ultimately Forrest Gregg was replaced by Sam Wyche. And just 4 seasons later, your final year in Cincinnati, you guys were in the Super Bowl versus the 49ers, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
What do you remember about that experience? And did the experience mean less or more to you at the time, given the loss?
It meant everything to me to be so close to winning the game. And it came down basically to the last play of the game. And in fact, right behind me on the wall is a picture from that Super Bowl. And the thing that is so ironic about it is being in 5 of them and winning 3 and losing 2. You remember every play of the game you lose because you replay it in your mind of, could I have done something that could have helped us win the game? And so we played when I was with Pittsburgh, we played the Arizona Cardinals in the Super Bowl down in Tampa. And again, we won basically on the last play of the game. And I ended up coming out to Arizona to coach. And Larry Fitzgerald, the future Hall of Fame wide receiver, goes, "Coach, I think about that game every day." And I said, "Larry, it's kind of like a curse. You will think about that every day until you win one." And obviously they didn't win, but it's a haunting thing when you lose, and especially a close game, because every play was so important and you relive it to go, what could I have done better? What should I have done? So for me to lose that first Super Bowl down in Miami versus the 49ers, it haunted me until we finally won with the Dallas Cowboys.
And that was all the way in 1992, correct?
I'm so old now, I don't remember dates, but I know we won. I know we ended up beating the Buffalo Bills, and it was in the Rose Bowl. And I think we won 52-7, something like that. And it was so cool for me to have been a Pac-10 player at the time, and playing in the Rose Bowl, then going back and playing a Super Bowl in the Rose Bowl, and kind of having that being my last NFL game. I thought, man, what a great way to go out, kind of where it all started for me at the Rose Bowl.
So you transitioned into my next question perfectly. After the 1992 season, unfortunately, Dallas did ultimately release you after the Super Bowl win in favor of actually a very, very well-known safety, Darren Woodson. Did you know at the time that this was kind of the end of your playing career, or were you still attempting to play in 1993?
No, I knew I was done. Darren Woodson came in from the Arizona State University and was a great player. And for me, at my age, winning a Super Bowl was a perfect time for me to go out. You know, you don't need to say, I need to keep trying and keep playing. So it kind of, I kind of knew even before, but I just thought at the Rose Bowl, what a perfect way for me to say, I'm done. And so I knew right after the game I wasn't playing again.
You got your start in coaching with a division rival from the team that you retired with. So how did that all come about, and how did you end up coaching with Washington under Norv Turner?
Yeah, I tell you, to me, it was I don't mean funny, funny, but Norv Turner was our offensive coordinator in Dallas. And he came up to me and said, "Hey, Ray, when you finish playing, would you like to coach?" And granted, he was the offensive coordinator. And so I looked at him. I said, "Well, you don't even coach me. Why would you want me?" He goes, "Well, your coaches always are glowing about how smart you are." And he goes, "I think you would be a great coach." And I had never thought about coaching before. And I just thought, well, yeah, I like the game. Yeah. And so Norv, when he was hired by the Washington Redskins, offered me a job, and I took it. And I'm so glad he had that kind of faith in me.
That's such an interesting story. I would not have guessed that he actually approached you before the end of your playing career, but hey, it makes perfect sense. I mean, if your coaches are glowing about you, like you said, I mean, those are the kind of guys you want to transition to coaching long term.
Yeah, I don't think it's a prerequisite that you have been a player, but I think it helps, obviously, that you've been a player. And I think what it does is it gives you a little validity with your players, that you've been there, done that, sat in their seats. Now that it's not an end all be all, but I think it helps.
I always wondered about that. I mean, when you're a coach and you kind of try to coach players who are playing a game that you may never have played, I mean, that's got to be a difficult proposition for a player to trust every word that you say. But a man like yourself, who's been there, who's won a Super Bowl, who's been in multiple, I can imagine they immediately respected you and had the knowledge that you were somebody they wanted to learn from.
Well, I think what it does is on your resume, and they know who you are. It just helps that your resume has player, Super Bowl winner on it, where if you didn't, they might question some of the things. Whereas if you've been there, done that, they know, well, he's done that. He's sweated. He's cried. He's been hurt. He's won. So I think when you go through all that in the dirt with them, they understand that where you're coming from.
That makes perfect sense. How much did your injury in 1992 factor into your decision to ultimately call it a career?
Well, I think most athletes, and when you watch their retirement speech when they're crying, really what they're saying is my body betrayed me. I can't play anymore. I can't do the things I used to do. And it's interesting. I tell players this. I used to be able to dunk a basketball, and then one day I went up to dunk it, and the ball hit the rim. And so I just said, hey, time out, time out. Give me the ball back again. So I went to dunk it again. I hit the rim again. And I was like, I can't dunk. And that was, the first time I've never been able to dunk a ball. Then as you get a little bit older, now that I golf a lot, I used to drive 300-yard par fours, and I can't do that anymore. I go, wow, I'm not the same guy I used to be. So when you have injuries, and I think every athlete understands this, it comes a time when your body won't allow you to do the things that it used to do. And so you know when it's time to go. And it's like the old fighters in the ring where all of a sudden they go out on their back on the canvas looking up because they stayed too long. That happens sometimes. And I knew it was time to go because my body couldn't do what it used to do.
That's a great point. I mean, sometimes it seems like players will hold on too long, which I've actually advocated for at times. And I mean, if you're not ready to hang up, why not keep playing if you can? But I love that you were able to kind of hear the messages your body was sending and walk away on your own terms. That's always one of the things that I love to see for players at the end of their careers.
Yeah, and it's hard because the mind's still sharp, but the body is aged so much that it's that time lapse of you think it, but then your body goes, whoa, 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 we can't do that anymore. So for me, obviously you're still sharp of mind, but it's just the body. I always say the body betrays you.
Absolutely. So fast forwarding a little bit, in 1997, you got a chance to finally coach for one of the teams you ultimately had played for before. What was it like to return to Cincinnati after playing there almost a decade before?
I had left right after the Super Bowl, and then I came back, and it had so many fond memories of, our kids being going to school in Cincinnati and just loving that area, and then coming back to a place that you played at and coaching and understanding, what a great city Cincinnati is. And so for me, it was like a homecoming. And we didn't win as much as obviously we wanted to win. We didn't get to a Super Bowl there coaching. But for me, it was a welcome kind of, you can come back home.
Absolutely. We'll get to Cincinnati Ohio, I guess, in just a little bit here again. But in 2004, you make a career move that kind of changes your life forever as far as a coach. You accepted a job with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just 2 seasons into your career with the team, you win a Super Bowl with Big Ben at the helm. The defense was kind of credited for carrying that team. I'm curious, heading into that season, did you believe the Steelers had a Super Bowl roster at the time?
Well, when you have future Hall of Famers, Jerome Bettis, Troy Polamalu, Ben Roethlisberger, you have great players, Ryan Clark, Ike Taylor, Hines Ward. I can go on and on, Randall L. When you have that quality of players and they're outstanding men, yeah, you kind of know that, something, we're loaded here. And you understand what talent is when you see it. And I think Ben's first year, I don't know if that was my first year or not, but we went 15-1 and lost to New England in a playoff game. But yeah, we kind of knew it was a special team, special roster, special people. And yeah, the Hall of Fame, Dick LeBeau was on it, Bill Cowher Hall of Fame. I mean, there's a lot of Hall of Fame players on that roster. So yeah, we kind of knew we had everything we needed to make a good run.
Absolutely. How big of an influence was Dick LeBeau on your career as a coach?
Oh, he drafted me in Cincinnati. So, and I always say that Coach LeBeau, he had the Midas touch, meaning when it came to people. And whether he was talking to presidents of the United States or people in a gas station. I bring that up because one time we were in Mobile, Alabama, and at the Senior Bowl, and we were going golfing, and we pull into a gas station. And when we walked in, the lady goes, "I know you. I know you. You're Dick LeBeau." And he goes, "Ray, they know me everywhere." And my point is, he had that common touch that some people don't have, where he makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. And he's a gifted guy that to this day still plays golf every day. And boy, I owe everything to Dick LeBeau.
That's such an amazing story. Dick LeBeau is easily one of the best coaches to ever grace the NFL, in my opinion, especially defensively. Not many play callers can stand up to him.
Oh, absolutely not. He really revolutionized defensive football. And everybody talks about Bill Walsh and Paul Brown on the offense being masterminds, but Dick LeBeau changed how defensive football was played.
Absolutely. I would agree 100%. And I would say his fingerprints are all over defensive football still to this day.
Oh, to this day it is, for sure.
So it didn't take long for that Steelers team that you just spoke about. You knew you had a Super Bowl roster to win again. I mean, it was only a couple seasons later, 2008. By the second win, you had seen a promotion and you're now overseeing the whole secondary. How much interest did you receive right away for DC jobs after that second win?
I don't remember, guys knocking your door down. I think guys knew who you were, but when you're in the shadow of somebody as powerful as Dick LeBeau, they just go, "Well, it's Dick LeBeau," which is 100% true. But I think the more you win, the more success everybody has. And then when you're coaching, again, Hall of Fame players, Pro Bowl players, Super Bowl winner players, it's kind of easy to just let your players speak for you, and that's kind of what I did. My players were great players. I aided them. I didn't do it for them. I aided them with help, but they did it, and I think it's just a reflection of what you do, meaning myself.
That's a great point. You obviously can't play the game for them, so all you can do is prepare them and hope that they have, absorbed everything that you've taught them.
They had the talent. We just put them in the right places and helped them understand where to be, where to go, how to get it done. And it was all their talent, and just it's like a master chef. You just give it a little salt and pepper here where it needs to be, turn up the fire when it needs to be turned up, simmer a little bit, and you end up with a fantastic meal.
I love that. I've actually heard a lot of food-related analogies when it comes to coaches and describing how they kind of concoct a roster. So it's interesting to hear all the different ways you can describe that. So in Pittsburgh, you got the first opportunity, at least I believe this is the first opportunity, to actually work very closely with Jaron, your son, who was involved as the ball boy, correct?
Yeah. He was, I can't remember how the Rooneys did it, but you had to be a certain age. I'll just say 12 to be a ball boy. And, he loved football. So he was able to, and I still remember my guys, the Troys, the Ikes, the Troy Polamalu's, the Deshae Townsend, letting Jaron come and do everything that he could do. And it was just an experience to be around the players. And a funny story, my daughter, who obviously was not a ball boy, but she was working down in Kiawah Island, and Ben Roethlisberger happened to be in her restaurant at the golf club. And so he looked at her, he goes, "Man, you look really familiar." And she goes, "Well, you know my father." And so he was looking at her and he goes, "Well, who's your father?" And she told him, and Ben was like, "Oh, I love Ray. I love Ray." So that's the kind of atmosphere that the Pittsburgh Steelers had. It really was a family affair where everybody was treated like that. And it's kind of a unique organization.
I would agree. You kind of notice that from the outside looking in as, players, coaches. I don't want to say they hang around, but they kind of tend to stay with the Steelers for, the majority of their career, or they're around the team after they've retired. And that kind of speaks volumes to how the teams run, how the ownership treats their players. So I always kind of took that as an inspiring note about the Steelers.
The Rooneys, they've been successful for a reason. They understand people. And some people understand football, but the Rooneys understand people, I think.
I would agree. I mean, from the outside looking in, again, you would know a lot better than I do. So a couple seasons after your second victory in the Super Bowl, you reunite with a former Steelers coach, Ken Whisenhunt, in Arizona as his defensive coordinator, a position you would hold under Whisenhunt at actually both stops he held as a head coach. Is Coach Whisenhunt still someone you talk to this day?
Yeah, he's in fact, I was just at the Rose Bowl. He was working for Penn State, and they were playing the University of Utah. And so, I still follow his career. He's working for, the University of Alabama now. He's an outstanding golfer. Wiz is a guy that is a brilliant offensive mind and a heck of a man.
So any chance you've been selling him on coming to the USFL?
Well, I think he's happy where he's at. I don't think we can pull him that direction.
Yeah, it was a long shot, but I figured it was worth asking. I would love to see him in one of these spring leagues, but definitely hard to argue with where he's at right now, for sure.
When you're working for Coach Saban, I think you're doing okay.
Absolutely. So fast forward a few more years, and Kirby Wilson, another former Steelers assistant you coach with, is looking for a defensive coordinator. I was curious, did he reach out to you about that position beforehand, or was he immediately in contact with Jaron, your son?
No, he knew Jaron, and he wanted to give a young coach an opportunity. And he knew Jaron for years. And, for me watching Jaron coach, he helped us with our draft. He understands college football players, pro football players. He's a talented young man that, again, I use the word opportunity a lot, Sam. You'll hear me use that word over and over. And I think most people just need the opportunity. And so Coach Kirby gave it to him. And then I'm indebted to the USFL for giving me the opportunity now to work with my son. And I kind of say it that way, to work with my son, because I'm really learning everything from him.
That's completely fair. I mean, he was there last season, so he has knowledge of all the coaches, most of the players that are returning. So that's a good point. I mean, with that in mind, did you have any qualms about keeping the staff the way it was from 2022?
No, not at all. I went to a couple of the games last year in Birmingham, and then knowing Coach Wilson the way I do, he puts together good people. And so I had no issue with anybody. And in fact, when we were doing our draft, that was part of what we did. Kevin Colbert of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the GM that will be going into the Hall of Fame shortly, another Pittsburgh Steeler in the Hall of Fame. We talked, and he just said, remember how you put a roster together. You get talented athletes that are good people that love to play, and you're good. And when we put our draft together, Jaron and I, Lonnie Young, our GM, John Tomlinson, our offensive coordinator, what we tried to do was get the best players at their position. And so when you look at our draft picks, they were all small school players. And when you look back in the old days, most of the Pittsburgh Steelers guys were small school, whether you're talking about Joe Green from down in Dallas, you're talking about Donnie Shell, you can go on and on, Stallworth, all these guys from small schools. So that's what we did. We went, and our first pick was Lindsey Scott out of Incarnate Word. We drafted one of his receivers, Taylor Grimes, but they were, you look at Malik Ham, Isaiah Land, all these guys were all first team, either defensive players of the year, offensive player of the year, or all first team, all conference. And so our whole draft was picking elite players at their position and at their school. And, I've heard feedback that, obviously It's just feedback, but we had what they considered the best draft in the USFL because we targeted good people first that are outstanding athletes. And so, if you will, we modeled ourselves after the Pittsburgh Steelers and how they drafted.
Speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers and modeling yourselves after them, what do you think about donning the yellow and black once again in 2023?
Well, I'm glad they changed it. I mean, if you're obviously Pittsburgh, every pro franchise in Pittsburgh is black and gold. So what are we going to be? We're going to be black and gold. And for us, what an opportunity to be our first year. We're in Canton. I know we're not in Pittsburgh this year, but we'll be over there doing Boys and Girls Club visits. We're taking our players over there. We'll be at the police stations and fire stations and the high schools. We want to be in the community, and that's part of what Pittsburgh is. And when people think of Pittsburgh sports, they think of black and gold.
That is absolutely true. I think at the point in time when you guys made the change, I think you were literally the only Pittsburgh professional team that had colors other than black and gold. So
it's
definitely
true.
Interesting. I wanted to touch on the fact that you as a person are returning to Ohio. Was there any little bit of a part of you that was excited to go back to Ohio once again for a third time?
You know, I talked at the Hall of Fame about that, and what I call the triangle, which is Western PA, where Pittsburgh is, Southern Ohio, where Cincinnati is, and Northern Ohio, where Cleveland is. And I just call that the triangle because it's kind of like that. For me, so much of my football roots are back there. And I talked about that being the bedrock of football. You know, you have Paul Brown from back there. You have Newt Rockney from back there. You have Jim Thorpe from back there. You have Fritz Pollard from back there. When you look at that area, whether you're talking about the first professional game being from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, playing Jeanette, Pennsylvania, then you get the Canton Bulldogs. You talk about the history of professional football. It's all in that, what I call the triangle of Western PA and Ohio. Yeah, I'm excited about being back there. And then our games are going to be held at the Pro Football Hall of Fame Stadium. So for us, you know, we talk about getting to the NFL as being the ultimate goal of everybody. Well, you look at what the USFL is doing. We're playing at the Hall of Fame Stadium as our backdrop. And I kind of equated that to the Field of Dreams, where I keep saying, if you're good enough, they'll come find you. So for us to be able to be in the shadow of Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati at the Hall of Fame, I don't think you get a better picture than that.
Absolutely. Talk about a great sales pitch from a man who knows Cincinnati quite well and Ohio quite well in general. I mean, given the fact that you spent a couple of years there in Cleveland as a defensive coordinator, several years there as a player in Cincinnati, and again in Pittsburgh as a coach. So, I mean, unbelievable to see you back with the Pittsburgh Maulers playing in Ohio. It's just kind of crazy how that all worked out.
I feel at home back there. You know, there's so many memories of well, I always say, you know, you win a lot, you lose some, and then you meet great people in between that. So for me, that's really where most of my career has been, my professional career.
Absolutely. Once again, just crazy to kind of see how it's all come together for you like that. So as you just talked about, we've completed the USFL 2.0 first ever college draft. What are your thoughts on the college rights draft? How big of a challenge was it for you guys to draft players? And when do you envision these guys joining the team?
Well, for us, it was easy. We targeted a specific type player, character, athletic. So for us, you know, we did our research to find out who these guys were, and we love our draft. What we've told our players is go to your pro day, go to your NFL pro day. And if they end up getting drafted, that's just a feather in our cap that we picked the right guys. Then let's say for whatever reason they don't get drafted, come on over and play well here. And guess what? You'll be in the NFL. So for us, what did we do? We targeted great character people that were outstanding athletes. And I think our draft will kind of be the model of what the spring league is all about. You find the best small school player you can that was probably overlooked for whatever reason, give them the opportunity and watch what they can do.
That makes perfect sense. I'm curious only because I've talked to a couple of the players from your draft class specifically. Are you going to turn players away if they try to show up right away?
Oh, absolutely not. Again, we're encouraging them to go to your pro day and do the best you can. And I understand that your dream is I want to play in the NFL. All I told our players were, we'll give you the opportunity. We'll try to help you any way we can to get there. And obviously, last year proved that you can make it. So I think it makes our job easier. And if they come in and trust us and if they play well, they'll be there.
100%. In fact, even the teams that had the losing records last season sent a good amount of players to the NFL. So, I mean, if you've got the talent, you are going to end up there one way or another.
Yeah. Cream rises to the top, as they talk about. And so for us, what we're trying to do is give them the opportunity to showcase their skills.
Absolutely. So heading into 2023, as we've talked about before, you're reunited with your son, who now is kind of your right-hand man. He's your defensive coordinator and your assistant head coach. What has this experience been like so far, being able to put together a draft class with him and ultimately work directly with him on a daily basis now?
Well, really, he's done, I would say, 90% of the work because he's been exposed to the league. He knows how the league operates, what kind of player you're looking for, how the rules are, the roster, the scheduling. So we tweaked it, but he's done the majority of the work, and meaning he's ready to take that next step because he understands how the whole thing is put together, from the players, from the meals, from the transportation to the equipment. So for me, it's really, I think, Mr. Miyagi, where I'm trying to do the wax on, wax off, but really he's doing it all. And I think the players understand that. They know what he can do. And so we're just looking forward to, again, I keep going back to giving our players the best opportunity to succeed.
100%. It sounds like Mr. Jaron Horton out over there is eventually going to be a head coach of himself.
I think he's ready, and sometimes you just need the opportunity and the light and the platform, the stage to showcase, and we're going to give him every opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. And I think the USFL is going to, it didn't do it in 2022, but I believe it's only a matter of time before we see a large amount of coaches start jumping to the NFL due to the opportunities that they got in the USFL. So
I think so. What you're doing is you're doing the same thing for the coaches that you're doing for the players. You're giving them an opportunity to show that they can do it.
100%. So I got a couple more questions for you. First of all, in your opinion, the USFL talks often about the long-term future. I've often talked to coaches and they say 5 years, 10 years. It's not talking about, year 3, it's year 5, year 10 once again. So in your opinion, is this a league that does have the staying power that these other coaches have mentioned?
Well, I'll just go back to what you said, Sam, about how many players were on NFL rosters last year. It shows the quality of the players. And obviously, the longer you play, the better players you're going to get, where players go, I can showcase my skill and get there. So to me, that's your proof is look at the players. They're getting better and better. And our draft class, I really like. Will we get them? I hope. Do I hope that they will be in the league? Yeah, I do.
Absolutely. So 2 more questions for you. You haven't held an official coaching position since 2019 when you were with Washington once again. How did you spend that time away from being a full-time coach, and how do you feel that you will have been prepared better in 2023 because of it?
Okay. Well, how will I be prepared better? Well, I think because I'll lean on my son, Jaron, that's how I'll be better. But what did I do? I traveled a lot. I bought an airplane and I fly a lot. I golf a lot. I had a trip planned to Antarctica this year, but I canceled it because of the USFL. And that would have given me, in essence, every continent, every US state, every Canadian province hit. So as soon as I get a chance, I'm going to make it down to Antarctica. And I was thinking about, I don't know if you can do this or not, but taking a golf club and a golf ball and hit one and say I have the world record in Antarctica golfing. But what have I done? Just experienced life, I think, Sam. And uh, the football part of it, it never leaves you. I don't think. When I talked about being a player and your mind was still sharp, but your body just betrayed you. My mind's still football sharp. And the great thing is I don't have to get out there and run, cover, tackle, hit anybody because I don't think I could.
That's definitely fair. I'm 33 years old and I couldn't do it, so I don't blame you there. Last question of the night. You were passed over once in Arizona in favor of Bruce Arians as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. You're now getting your chance a decade later to finally run your own team. Do you have a chip on your shoulder at all from that opportunity kind of slipping through your fingers in the NFL?
No, I don't live my life that way. I think things happen for a reason. And if you ask me, and I stated this earlier, if we can make our players better, that's an ultimate goal, is to do that. And I've had an awesome life career. I don't think I've ever missed a thing in life. I think I've been truly blessed. So how can you miss something that you don't miss? And so for me, no, I think this is a chance of a lifetime to work with my son. And if we can make our players better, it will be a successful year.
Absolutely. If ever there was fate tied to a coaching decision, I think this was the one. I mean, for you to end up not only coaching the Pittsburgh Maulers in Canton, Ohio, but to be coaching with your son. I mean, there's so many coincidences here. It's almost like divine intervention. So
I think it's going to be an awesome experience, and I can't wait to help the players.
Absolutely. Well, with that, once again, thank you so much, Coach. I really appreciate you joining me. We're going to wrap it up here. And once again, thank you so much. I'm excited for the 2023 season, and best of luck. You guys definitely look like you have improved the roster quite a bit over 2022. So I definitely expect Pittsburgh to be in playoff contention deep in the season.
And I do too. And what we're going to try to do is live up to that tradition of, that little triangle of Pittsburgh being well, Cincinnati doing well now. We want to bring a winning product to the area.